All right, we're here. Hello, hello, hello. Here we go.
Where my girls at? Where my girls at? Independent, free spirit. Ooh, it's some serious. Where my girls at? We link up in a cool minute. Where my girls at? It's going down, down. Where my girls at? It's going down, down. It's going down tonight. We going out tonight. Yeah, right. We going out tonight. It's going down tonight. Yeah. It's going down tonight. We going out tonight. Yeah, right. We going out tonight. It's going down tonight. Yeah, right.
Hey, we're here. Welcome, 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 Facebook family. How are you? Happy Monday. Happy Monday. We made it. I missed you guys over the weekend. What did you guys do over the weekend? Anything fun? What'd y'all do? Well, we went out to a fabulous dinner. I got some work done, but it was good just to get out, you know. Now we can do some of the things that we used to do. And of course, we walked into the restaurant, we were masked up, and then we ate. We had to take the mask down, but we're here for another episode of We Got Issues. And we are talking domestic violence. We're talking pandemic. We are talking how things have really, really, really just been not good for domestic violence and people who are affected by domestic violence. And so we're going to talk all about it today. Thank you for joining us. It's our tribe. All right, see y'all.
On in the country. It is so much going on in the country. And so on today, we have chosen to talk about, we've been talking about the pandemic. We're still in the pandemic, but outside of the pandemic, there are other things that are going on inside the pandemic. And so today we're talking about the surge, the rise, the increase of domestic violence. Yes, domestic violence. And so, as I said, all of us have probably been affected, whether it's been a family member, a sister, a mother, a co-worker, all of us probably, I feel safe in saying, know somebody that may have been or are currently in a domestic violence situation. And so if you know somebody, call them and tell them, hey, we want to hear. Many of you have stories, survivor stories, and that is so awesome. But today, our goal is to bring awareness, hope, and hopefully give you some resources that you can use. And sometimes this information may not be for you personally, but you can share it with other people. And so that's our goal on today. And so I'm excited and about our special guest that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes after we meet our girlfriends, you guys that live in Detroit in the Wayne County area. And really, she is not just a beloved hometown hero. Her name is known all across the country. And I'm talking about none other than the Wayne County Prosecutor, Kym Worthy. But I'll introduce her a little bit further in just a few minutes. And so I'm going to throw it to my co-host. Of course, I love her last name because, you know, she can say every day is Monday. But I'm going to throw it to my girlfriend, Sabrina Goodwin Monday. What's up, Bree?
Hey, Chris, so good to see you. Everybody looking good. Happy Monday. And that's right, every day is Monday. This is Sabrina Goodwin Monday with your Monday Motivation coming to you live from 9:10 a.m. Well, I'm so glad that we have the prosecutor in the house today. She is going to educate and inform. We're so blessed to have the Honorable Kym Worthy with us today. Domestic violence is serious business. So many are affected by it. I don't know if the stat is still the same, but when I first heard this a few years ago, 1 in 4 affected by domestic violence, that number blew me away. And so I'm glad that we're here to talk about it all and how we can help our girlfriends who are in that situation. All right, Caterina, we're going to you, my friend, because we want to get right to our guest. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm so good. It is a choice to be good because there is so much. It seems like the news is happening faster than the pop-ups even happen. And we don't want to make light of anything that is taking place in our country at such a heavy time. But I said to a girlfriend today, I was talking to her as she's walking through chemotherapy, my joy is non-negotiable. She decided her joy is non-negotiable. So no matter happy, sad, whatever's going on, let your joy be non-negotiable. And that's what I've learned from these girlfriends. And so even through this topic, I get teary-eyed because I'm going to talk about my girlfriend, my best girlfriend that I walk through this process with. And it's no joke. So we are so excited about our guest. And our other girlfriend is coming back on soon. Colombia is no joke. Okay, we love it.
Y'all know she's far away. She's across the water. She's their Wi-Fi is not our Wi-Fi. So she'll be back. She will be back.
She will be back. So, Crisette.
Absolutely. Thank you, Caterina. Yes, we are in anticipation of Gloria popping on at any time. You guys know she is joining us all the way from Colombia, South America. So trust me, she loves hanging out with the girlfriends. And this topic I know is very near and dear to her heart. And we did absolutely want her to share a little bit of her domestic violence story. And so without further ado, I am so excited to introduce our special guest. You know, I was reading and somebody wrote, being mistreated by the person you love, especially when physical abuse is involved, is one of the most frightening and traumatic experiences a woman can face. And it's hard to know what to do when it happens. Now, according to People magazine, domestic violence incidents in the United States increased by 8.1% after COVID-19 lockdown orders, according to a new study. The increase in cases of domestic violence began to rise last spring as stay-at-home orders began confining people into their homes, according to the findings. And so I am so excited that this guest that you are going to meet in just a minute, she has a passion for women. And, you know, she is on top of this issue, and literally she is sounding the bullhorn. You talking about PSA, public service announcements about this issue, she is there. She's on the front line and she wants to talk about it all. And it's none other than the Honorable Kym Worthy. She was an assistant prosecutor in Wayne County for 11 years, a Detroit Recorder's Court judge for 2 years, and a Wayne County Circuit judge for 9 years. She is a longtime mental health and adoption advocate. She was the first woman and the first African-American woman to serve as Wayne County prosecutor. She is nationally known for her innovative initiatives and alternatives to incarceration programs, as well as her victim advocacy. Kym was inducted into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame in 2018 and was featured in the Emmy-winning HBO documentary, I Am Evidence, that chronicled the untested sexual assault crisis in America. She is also the mother of 3 daughters. And one of the things that you may not know, and I'm telling you, we could have her on here for 2 hours, because what I learned about Kym, and this is early, this is back in 1992, that she was the prosecutor who prosecuted the 2 police officers, Walter Butson and Levy Nevers, for the murder of Malice Green. And so when I tell you she has a wealth of knowledge about what is going on right now with this George Floyd case, I know my girlfriends want to ask her a few questions about that, but I know she is here to talk about domestic violence. And so I just want to say welcome, Madam Prosecutor Kym. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us on today on We Got Met. We got issues. We got issues.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here. Now, y'all are used to this dual thing going on, but I'm listening to the radio and listening to this. It's a little bit of a backlog. So I'll do the best I can. Y'all the experts.
Okay, well, we're glad that you are here, because this is, now I do hear echo. What do we need to do to?
Okay, that's better.
Is that from on my end? Okay, excellent. So Kym, maybe you need to turn your volume down on your phone.
Is that better?
Yes. Yes, okay. Much better. I think a little bit more. Turn it down a little bit more.
Okay, I'll take it.
You guys, this is live radio. This is live radio. And you know what, we're gonna get together.
All right. Reset.
Okay. All right. And so Kym, real quickly, just an adjustment. If you have us on speaker, take it off speaker. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into this topic of domestic violence. And you want to share a little bit with us, Kym, why this is so near and dear to your heart?
Yes, I have to tell you, you said it exactly right when you said that during the pandemic, domestic violence has gone up exponentially. When we first started in this pandemic, the second week of March last year, I cannot believe it's been, 16, 17 months almost. And we expected there to be a rise in domestic violence, because we knew that many of the women, and it's not just women who are violated in domestic violence, but it's also men and children, but we'll stick to it's overwhelmingly women. And we knew that when they were at home, especially during the stay-at-home order, that the governor ordered, that there would be women who were abused, that were living with their abusers 24/7. So, and many of the men had lost their jobs, so they weren't even leaving during 8-10 hours a day to go to work. And so families were basically together 24/7. And if you're in an abusive relationship, that spells even more than you would normally imagine. We also had a problem with, kids who are not in school, and kids that were being abused or that were also victims of this domestic violence. They were not leaving the home at all because, school learning was online. And so usually they leave home, they have an opportunity to get away from it. They have an opportunity to tell somebody outside of the household what's going on. And so we knew it would be very problematic. But what we were surprised about is it didn't happen right away. we didn't see an increase in domestic violence for months, so probably about 3 or 4 months, and then it spiked. And I tell you, I've been doing this for decades, and I have never seen it like it is now, as bad as it is now.
Wow, that I mean, we knew that domestic violence was there, and we know that, you know, we've talked about it before, and now that, you know, the pandemic is here and so many, like you said, are having to be confined to those quarters, that number has increased. So can you share with us on today, what are some of the signs, what are some of the things that we as a community need to look out for as when it comes to identifying women that may be in a domestic violence situation?
Well, one of them, you know, sometimes we know and sometimes people hide it very, very well. And as we know, the psychopathology of domestic violence, and people wonder, why doesn't she leave? Or why doesn't he leave? Why do they stay? And oftentimes it's for many reasons. It's because that's your only source of support. You may not have anyone else to support, because what domestic batterers do is they are very, very good at starting and grooming. And what I mean by that, they're very good at isolating the person that's being abused from their friends and family. And it can start very slowly. And if you notice, if you're always around a friend or a loved one or your best friend, and they have this new boyfriend or this new husband that you don't know very well, or even if you do, if you start to see her less and less and less, if she can't stay on the phone, if the phone is cut off very quickly, if in fact you used to see them all the time and now you hardly see them, but it's slowly, and sometimes they do it so slowly you don't even realize it's happening until you look up and you realize you haven't talked to your girlfriend in a week, 2 weeks. And so if you're used to talking to them every day, as we are with so many of our good friends, they're not available, or they don't call you back, or you text and they don't text you back. Isolationism is the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues. So, and then all of a sudden, you know, of course, the more obvious kinds like unexplained bruising, or taking up for them when they probably shouldn't. And there's so many, many other issues. The children are silenced. Everybody's silenced. Oftentimes what we see in more tragic situations, if you see the family dog or the family pet is somehow injured or disappears, because oftentimes what happens is the abuser says to the woman, if you don't stay with me, if you don't continue to do what I want you to do, I will harm the family dog. And one of the most surprising things for me was to find out there's a big link between abusive animals and family violence. And so isolationism, what I would say, is the biggest issue. Unexplained bruises, unexplained absences. And so those are some of the most common signs of domestic violence.
Wow. Okay, so can you tell us real quickly, Madam Prosecutor, the numbers in at least the Wayne County area? I know that you were talking about so many women are being abused, but there are so many that have succumbed, that have been murdered at the hands of their abusers.
So we have it in two categories. There's non-fatal domestic violence cases, and then of course the fatal domestic violence cases. And I'll start with the most tragic ones, I think. Normally, in previous years, we would normally see anywhere from 7 to 10 or 12 cases of domestic violence homicide. 7 to 12, and even that's a lot. You know, that's, you know, just over or just under once a month if it's 7, or just, you know, about once a month on average if it's 12. So last year we saw a spike, 24. We had never seen that kind of spike. So in 2019 we saw 12. Previous to that, we would see, you know, anywhere from 7 to 12. And then last year, 2020, during the pandemic, we saw 24 cases of domestic violence homicide. That is an all-time high for Wayne County. Now, what's even more shocking is that we are now, in the middle of April, and we already have 12. So we are on par to maybe even double, or certainly go way over 24. It is truly, truly shocking. In terms of non-fatal domestic violence cases, we normally in previous years would see anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000, and that is a lot across the county. Then last year, and then the 2019, we saw about 8,800, and we were astounded it was so close to 9,000. And then last year in 2020, guess what? It topped 10,000.
Wow.
We are already, again, middle of April, we already have 2,700 cases of non-fatal domestic violence, and it's only the middle of April. So we have over 2,700 cases across Wayne County in the middle of April so far this year. So when I say it's truly astounding, when I say this is truly shocking, these numbers would surprise almost anybody. And as someone who has done this kind of work for almost 3 decades, either as an assistant prosecutor, as a judge where I presided over these cases, or as the elected prosecutor, this is my 17th year, these numbers are staggering. And what's even worse is we are having a hard time keeping up. And even worse than that, we haven't done a trial due to safety precautions due to the pandemic. We can't bring in 100 jurors and seat them together as we pick a jury. So we haven't done hardly any trials in often well over a year. So all last year's cases of domestic violence, we still have to do. And plus these new cases that I'm talking about. So it's truly, truly staggering. And each one of my domestic violence prosecutors probably touch 1,000 per prosecutor. So that's impossible. Way, 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 way over the standards of what any prosecutor should have. So it's almost unimaginable at this point. And that's truly scary.
Wow. I mean, that is overwhelming. You guys, we are talking about domestic violence, the surge, the rise, the increase of domestic violence, especially during this pandemic. We're going to continue this conversation right after this break. We are here with the Wayne County Prosecutor, Kym Worthy. We'll see you right back after this break.
Oh, my. Tribe. Those numbers are astounding.
Yes.
Did you hear those numbers
LaDon,
that she talked about?
Okay, I'm texting her now and letting her know I'm going to take her right after we come back from break.
How do we make this better? How do we get our
Okay,
friends?
is that feedback a little bit better, or does she still need to turn her phone down a little bit more?
How the numbers have skyrocketed? But she told us, she said the kids are out of school. She said husbands have lost their jobs.
Okay.
She talked about just so much strife in the household that people are spending more time than ever in the middle of a pandemic.
Okay.
She said we're on course right now.
Right. And you know, when people don't really know, you know, sometimes it's hard to tell them how to do it and whatever. So it's all good. It's all good. As long as, you know, you can hear what we're saying.
We have the amazing Honorable Kym Worthy to talk us through this situation. She said the signs to look for, because 1 out of 4 is affected by domestic violence. So are we watching the patterns of communication? Are we watching bruising that's unexplained? Are we watching for just distant communication with our family members and friends? She said there are signs, but you have to lean in and you have to be observant, and you cannot be afraid of the conversation. To check on the girlfriends. We're in a commercial break right now. And just think that's one district. It's not the country. That's right. So it's a heavy topic, but it's necessary that we talk about it. We have to know when to speak up and not be silent. And so to our tribe, we want you to take notes, and we want this session to give you courage and bravery to speak up, speak out, help. We know sometimes they don't want our help. They want our help, but they're afraid to ask for our help. So we're on a commercial break. I think we're going back. Thank you for tuning in. This is Sabrina, Goodwin Monday.
Okay, all right. We are back. And you are listening to 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. We got issues, and we have been talking about the epidemic, the rise of domestic violence in this pandemic. And we are here today with the Honorable Wayne County Prosecutor Kym Worthy is here, and we're talking about it. And when I tell you she is passionate about getting the word out, we have to do our part to stop domestic violence if we can do that. And so before we hear from the girlfriends, we do have a caller. I'm so excited. We have LaDonna. LaDonna, are you on the call? Are you on the line? Yes, we can. How are you?
Thank you for calling us. Oh, thank you. It's good to be on. Thank you for having me. All right. Do you have your turn it down? I have my earphones on. Maybe I should take my AirPods on. Is that okay? No, that's better. Go ahead. Okay. Okay, great. Yes, it's a pleasure to be on tonight. Thank you for having me to be with you. Well, I know that you know so much about this issue of domestic violence. I mean, LaDonna, you have championed this cause. I mean, you are in the thick of it. I mean, LaDonna is over our Women Against Domestic Violence, Sisters Against Domestic Violence at our church. And when I tell you, she is a wealth of knowledge, and she knows about everything that deals with a woman and domestic violence. She knows about. So just share with us a few things that you think is important for our audience to know about this increase in domestic violence. Well, yeah, absolutely. I want to start off by saying hello to the Honorable Kym Worthy, who has been such a big supporter of us in the city of Detroit and the projects that we have worked on for reducing domestic violence. She was like an integral part of our journey to healing and back in 2018, and she was a prolific speaker around, domestic violence and sexual assault. As she championed and her voice enough said, and she launched the sexual assault initiative. And so she's just a multidisciplinary powerhouse in Detroit around intimate partner violence. And I agree with everything she said, especially, with COVID in Detroit. When I heard the campaign that well-meaning governors that I adore and others are trying to keep people safe and reduce deaths in COVID. But when the campaign came out, stay home, stay safe, we start saying, well, what are we doing safe when home is not the safe place to be? It's the least safest place for them to be. So that we knew, like Prosecutor Worthy, that things were going to start to really intensify during COVID, and sure enough, they did.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
And so let me ask you this question, because our cases of COVID is rising in Michigan. Mm-hmm. I know there was, before COVID, women had some safe places that they could go to. Are those places available now, or are they still shut down because of COVID?
I am so glad
COVID has really been a huge barrier to women in shelter at this point and receiving shelter. And in the beginning, we had to do testing and we had to protect victims, and we had to protect victims in shelter who had their children. And so it's been a challenge because many shelters, they're not taking a lot of the resources that even help the shelter run to keep women safe on a day-to-day basis that they need. They're just not accepting a lot of things, and there's no room. So we've had to do more to come up with dollars from the Office on Violence Against Women, because they're one of our major funders, to put women in hotels as much as we can, and when there's no shelter, because it's just the reality also, like Prosecutor Worthy said, has increased, almost like 80% with these women who are staying home with these batterers, who are very angry. They're very entitled individuals. And like the prosecutor was saying, when they've been separated, victims from their support system, and other things that would help empower them for safety, including the spaces in their home or being able to be there. We've had to come up with ways to create safety plans around code words, around incorporating other things that might help them stay safe, that would draw us to know what we have to do.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked.
Right. So, LaDonna, can you end by giving the domestic hotline number for any one of our viewers that are either watching or listening? If you are in a domestic violence situation, or you may know somebody that's in a domestic violence situation, what is that number that they can call? Well, we have the National Network to End Domestic Violence. The regular hotline is 1-800-799-7322. You make sure, because I have several numbers. 7233. I think it's 7233. Yeah. It's 799 FACE. Okay. Yes, right. I have all these sections. Phone numbers here. No problem. I'm sitting here. Yeah, it's a lot of numbers. So we absolutely want to show that number so that you can write it down. And it's just a number that we all should have, because you never know when you're going to need to share it with somebody. And again, that's 1-800-799-99. Yep, 7233. Yep, 7233. Well, LaDonna, we're so thankful that. Go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead. I was just going to say thank you so much for calling in and, sharing your expertise on this issue. I know that, again, you have a wealth of information. You work with women that are in domestic violence. You work with them on a daily basis. And so we appreciate you championing their cause and being in the thick of it and just being, a sister girlfriend. And, that's one of the things I love about this show. We are about the force of friendship. And I'm going to tell you, it's nothing like when you're in a situation like this, you got to have a friend, somebody that's going to listen, and somebody that will do their best to help keep you safe, your kids safe, and just, want to make sure that you come out alive. And so I appreciate you being that person. So thank you so much, LaDonna, for calling in. Thank you, First Lady. The Pictures Against Abuse Society is a powerful women of purpose ministry, and thank you for your support, and the prosecutor. You're so welcome. Thank you, LaDonna. And so you guys, as I said earlier, all of us
who has been affected by domestic violence. And, one of our girlfriends, Gloria, she has not been shy about sharing her story. And I know her story has helped so many other women that find themselves being quiet and don't want to share. But I just think that when you share your story, you help somebody else or give somebody else the courage to share theirs. So Gloria, tell us a little bit about your journey with domestic violence.
Well, I am always so proud and privileged to have a platform. I'm always so proud and privileged to have a platform to talk about this topic. And I'm so excited to be here, Madam Prosecutor. I'm from Detroit, Michigan as well, born and raised in Detroit. So I'm so excited to see you lift this up with such fever and such a passion to lift this up. So I'm very excited. I did live in domestic violence for 10 years. And I'm one of those women that stands up and says, I'm a powerful, professional, smart person who dealt with domestic violence for a long time. And so my question to everybody always is, what the degree of domestic violence is so wide. And sometimes we think about domestic violence, we only think about the burning bed. But I was in a situation where I was living away from most of my family, and I didn't tell them, and I couldn't believe it was happening to me. Even that, prosecutor, that sometimes it happens to you and you just can't even believe it's happening to you. My story was, I was from parents, middle class, beautiful family, great upbringing. None of this was in my background. I didn't even recognize it. So I didn't, out of embarrassment, I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my sisters, who I was very, very close to. And because he was from a very middle class professional family. And then when I mentioned it to his mother, she didn't do anything about it. Little did I know she was probably dealing with it in some way, form, or fashion. And then you have the physical abuse, and then you have the mental abuse. I mean, it's just so much. And now you're bringing in the pet abuse. I didn't even know there was pet abuse. So that's a whole nother piece of it. So I do talk about it loud. And I remember telling my kids, Mom has to bring this topic to bear. And the first time I talked about it out loud, I was in a room full of a lot of women, and no one looked to the left or the right. They just looked at me and their eyes were just filling up with water. And so there's a lot of questions that come up. When I call the hotline, what will happen to me? How am I going to be protected? What do I do for my kids? I'm glad you brought that question up, Crisette, about in a pandemic, what do we do? And I have to say this, that you, Prosecutor Kym Worthy, are being a true girlfriend. Because a true girlfriend will talk about the difficult topics. It is not easy. My sister went to Howard, I went to Howard too, and one of her best girlfriends was murdered because of domestic violence. And that has messed up Amy for so many years in so many ways, because this was her close friend. And you know how you see it, but there's nothing you can do about it, and that person keeps coming back, or you feel like there's nothing, and then when you don't feel like you've done enough, you sit in that pain for so long. So I would love it if you would just talk about the degree of domestic violence, because it's not always. I had a black eye. My very first day at Harvard Business School was with a black eye. So I know that part, but not everybody has the physical symptoms, but it is just as horrible. Can you educate us on that piece as well?
You know, it's interesting. You raised several points.
You're muted.
And am I muted?
Okay, go ahead. We can hear you now.
Okay. My doorbell's ringing. Sorry about that. You brought up several points. Number one, it's not just from one class cycle. It can be multimillionaires that are domestic, that are abusing their wives, children, significant others. It could be upper class, it could be middle class, it could be, I hate to say lower class because I hate the way that sounds, but it could be any socioeconomic spectrum. There is no stereotype. So it's just like, sexual assault. There's no stereotype. It's not just stranger danger. It could be the person you're dating. It could be someone in the frat house. It could be someone at your church. It could be anybody. So that's very important. Another important thing to realize that you brought up is it can be emotional abuse, mental abuse, constantly belittling you, constantly talking about you, constantly putting you down to make himself feel better. It can be, mental, emotional. It could be holding the finances or obstructing you in some kind of way, trying to talk you out of going to school, trying to talk you out of being your best self to keep you held down in a certain way. And then, of course, there could be quote unquote minor physical abuse that may start that way. It may be a fight. He may be physically abusive. And then you have the honeymoon period when he brings you flowers and candy and cards and all kinds of things. And those kind of periods do not last, as you know. And then there could be the straight up just physical abuse that's horrible. So it's a wide spectrum, just like most things in life. It's not stereotypical. They can domestic abuser can look like anyone. And you said something else very important that I don't know if everybody caught. Oftentimes, when a person is abusive, they have been abused themselves, or they have witnessed that abuse. And it's hard to wrap your brain around, but that is true. The other thing that you brought up is it's very, very important. The long-term effects, not only on the person that's being abused, but the children who may witness this on an everyday basis. So especially in a pandemic, when our children are already, there's stories everywhere about how the mental illness, and not mental illness, but the mental station of children, because they haven't, mental stress, because they haven't been out, they don't see their friends, they don't go to their activities, they don't have any way to release themselves in that sense. And then add on top of that, being cooped up in a house with someone who's being abused. And the long-term mental effects. And one of the things that we tell people all the time is, my children have been traumatized by domestic violence. Should they go to counseling? And that's, of course, a decision for the individual parent to make. And I am not here in any way, none of us are, to judge anyone that is in a domestic violence relationship. I am not here to judge you, whether you choose to stay or whether you feel you can't leave. I am not here to judge you. I am here to offer support and help and resources. And so in some cases, counseling is appropriate. And the domestic violence court advocates in my office can give you referrals for counseling. If you want to call, and I'm going to give you a lot of numbers here, so I'll repeat them twice. If you want to call and ask questions and for resources for your children who witnessed domestic violence, you can call my office at 313-224-5857. 313-224-5857 and ask to speak to a court advocate. And these are advocates in my office who are trained to help people with domestic violence. I also want to just repeat that hotline. I know there's a little bit of confusion. And the national hotline is 1-800-799-7233. 1-800, or for people who may have just tuned in, 1-800-799-7233. And I'm also prepared at this time to give a list of service providers. We have some that cater to the Arab American community, some that cater to the LGBT community, some that cater to the African American community. And I'm here to give those resource numbers as well at the appropriate time. So again, a wide spectrum. Yes, animal abuse is very real when it comes to family violence. Child abuse is very real when it comes to family violence, and the possibility of being harmed is very real when it comes to family violence. Let me also say this, and this is something I know that you know, Gloria, is that the most dangerous time for someone that's in an abusive relationship, the most dangerous time for someone that's in an abusive relationship is when they're getting ready to leave. And when they're ready to break that grip. It's the most dangerous time. That is when we see our domestic violence homicides. So we want to make sure that if you are planning to leave, make a plan that only you know, maybe a few girlfriends know. And sometimes I've had one friend, in fact, a cousin of mine, who began to move the things out of her house very strategically, and not all at the same time. And I know someone else who had a bag packed when they were ready to go, a small bag so they could get out. But my cousin, again, started to leave in pieces, bits and pieces, moving the things out that her children used, moving the things out that she knew very, very slowly, very strategically, so it was almost unnoticeable. And she was ready to leave. And she made a plan. She went into a shelter. I know other people that have gone to family relatives, and they made sure that they could be securely protected, because when the woman is ready to leave, that's the most dangerous time. So make sure there is a plan.
Wow, the most dangerous time is when she decides to get out. I believe, Caterina, you had a question for the prosecutor.
I do. Prosecutor Kym, thank you so much for all that you're bringing to the conversation. I'm curious, with the staggering numbers during COVID, how much of that is, I don't know if I'm going to say it correctly, new abusers versus the fact that women have been home more, haven't been able to go out, and they were already being abused, but it's increased. So if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we don't really know. I haven't kept those statistics. We're just beginning to keep some deeper statistics than we used to keep, but that's a very good question. We suspect that it's people who are being newly abused, or women who have dropped their cases and not followed through. And we do not pressure you to follow through. We would like everybody to follow through with their court case, but what we are finding out is about 45% of our victims where their abuser has been charged with a crime, 45% are dropping out from their cases. And for varying reasons. One is because that's just the nature of domestic violence cases. Another reason is because the domestic violence has really caught on. And if they drag out the cases and ask for adjournments, and their lawyers ask for adjournments, and some of them are out of the jail because of COVID, we know that the longer you drag it out, the likelihood that the victim is the survivor is going to go ahead and cooperate gets less and less and less. So what we are trying to do now is I have partnered with a number of domestic violence agencies that I'll talk about in a minute. And because, again, 45% is a staggering number, but not a surprising number of cases that we are just going to have to dismiss. Because many times, again, they're dragging out, they're afraid, they've gone back because they don't have a source of income, they've lost their own jobs, they don't have anyone else to support them. So what I want to do is I would like to have them supported. They're dragging out, supported. I would like to make sure that they're supported. To really answer your question, we don't really know about whether these are new cases, old cases, recurring cases. We just don't know at this point until we take a deeper dive into it.
Wow. Sabrina, you had something what you want to share?
Yes. Thank you so much for being here with us. I had a question. I know there's a backlog in the court system for offenders because of COVID and the pandemic. And so is this a green light? They know that they're not going to get in a lot of trouble because of the court's backup. What do you say to this? And how are you guys moving them through the system? I'm just like wanting them out of these homes and in jail where they belong. What are the courts doing to help with these cases?
Well, what we have to be safe. I mean, we obviously the court is run by the chief judge who gets their chief judges all over the state who get their direction from the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court Administrator's Office. And so the Supreme Court tells us how many people we can have in a courtroom. There's a huge surge in Michigan now. The courts were first going to open for business at the beginning of March, I believe it was, and then it went to mid-March, and then it went to April 7th, and then it went to April 18th, and now it's June 7th. And so the big reason is because of the big surge. And because of the Michigan, at least last week, I don't know about this week, was #1 in the country for big surges, as we all know. It's been very well reported. So we cannot have jury trials of all these people in the courtroom when they have a surge. Right. And so safety, we want to make sure that the citizens and the people coming into the courthouse are safe and we can practice social distancing and all of that. So yes, people are taking, to be very honest with you, yes, people are taking advantage of the fact that these cases are not going right now. But so let me just talk a little bit about the services, if you don't mind. So what we are encouraging people to do is we have ACCESS. It's ACCESS, Resource Center for Survivors of Sexual Assault, ACCESS. And the contact information, I'll go as slowly as I can, is 313-216-2202. That's ACCESS, a Resource Center for Survivors of Sexual Assault, 313-216-2202. We have Avalon Healing Center, formerly known as Wayne County SAFE. It's a resource center for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. The crisis line, and I just have to give out, I will give out all this information, 313-430-8000. 313-430-8000. I want to give you a few more. We have the Detroit Police Department Victim Assistance Program. They're very, very good. The Detroit Police Department Victim Assistance Program, resources for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, 313-833-1660. 313-833-1660. And of course, a lot of you heard about First Step. First Step is a resource center for survivors of DV, domestic violence and sexual assault, and they offer shelter services. Their crisis line is 734-459-5900. 734-459-5900. And again, they offer shelter services. We have Haven, HAVEN. It's a resource center for survivors of domestic violence, and their crisis line is 248-334-1274. 248-334-1274. And I want to give you one more, the Sasha Center, SASHA, the Sasha Center, which is the Sexual Assault Services for Holistic Healing and Awareness. And their resource focuses on the African American experience, but groups and services are open to all. It's very important to say that. So it's primarily a resource center for African American experience. The groups and services are open to all, and that is run by my friend Lila Johnson, and she has groups for men who are abusers, and she works with men that are abusers to try to stop that cycle. Her contact information is 888-865-7055. 888-765-7055. And I know that's a lot of information. And I don't know if you have a website. If you have a website, I can certainly send this to you, and you can put it on your website for people to access.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
I mean, there's so many, there's so many resources out there. And we just want to make sure that, we get those numbers out there, because we know, again, this is such an epidemic. The rise is just, like you said, it is mind-boggling, and we want to do our part. Gloria, did you want to, let me ask you this, Gloria, and I know you've talked about it a lot, about when you knew it was time for you to leave? You know, so many women, they go back and forth, and I don't know if it's called the honeymoon stage, where, you know, they beat them up and then they are really nice to them and they bring flowers and they say, I'm never going to do it again. And they're really, really nice until the next time they abuse them. And it's a cycle. So share with us, Gloria, when did you finally say, enough is enough, I'm out of here?
I'll tell you the truth, Chris. It was a long process for me. It was a long process because the night before I was supposed to get married, I should have walked away. And I had 700 people showing up at that first wedding. And I did not have, and here's how God works. My father looked at me before we walked down the aisle, and he said to me, now you don't have to go down that aisle. And I truly believe that he did not know what was going on, but God spoke to him and said, you know, you don't have to go down that aisle. I just want you to know. I said, no, Daddy, I'm fine. But we had an argument before, the night before. I gave him the ring back, and then we made up, you know, because what we're seeing here is just as intense that they can be mad at you. That's how intense they can be to convince you they're the right one for you. That's how intense they can be about their love for you. That's how intense it can be. And so you get very, very confused. And so it was several times. I don't know when the time was. Well, this is what I will tell you. We had a big fight, but I woke up in the middle of the night. God woke me up. I say this all the time, in the middle of a dream. And he said to me, if you don't get out of there, this is going to happen to your daughter at 16 years old. You must do something now. And so when I got that dream, for me, I had to realize that I wasn't strong enough and that I had to go to a lawyer. But before I got the funds for the lawyer, I want you guys to know that our girlfriends here, my girlfriend and my cousin, came to me and said, that's it. When I told my girlfriend who lived next door to me, when I told her what was going on, because she didn't know, you know, we are good at covering this up. Like, we are good at covering this up. And so when I told her what was going on, and I don't even remember the incident that made me, but she was so strong. She said, that's it. It was one conversation. She said, that's it. We're out of here. No way. And she was very forceful to him. And then I had the resource to get a lawyer. And the words I said to the lawyer was, I'm going to give you this money, and I am telling you, I cannot talk to him. If I talk to him, I become weak. I do not want to say anything to him. So, Madam Prosecutor, it's so important for people to know that there's strength for them, even when they cannot be strong, because you just don't know. And so, Chris, it's a back and forth. It was a 10-year back and forth. He jumped on me when I was breastfeeding Juliana. And I waited for him to go to school, and then I gathered up all my stuff and went to Detroit to my mom's house. And I said, just pick me up at the airport. And she said, what, Gloria? I just said, just pick me up at the airport. When she started seeing all those bags coming out and the high chair was coming out, I mean, I was still breastfeeding. I had high chair. I was going to live with her for the rest of my entire life. You know, didn't know. So you do this, and then you go back, and then you believe it, and then you go back, because you can't believe in this situation. So that's why it's so important to talk about the degrees of abuse, and that, you know, what is a girlfriend to do? And I want to ask Madam Prosecutor this question, because this is so big. The numbers you just talked about were so huge. I know there's a lot to talk about on the news, but why is this not talked about on the news at the level that other things are talked about?
Well, you know, Crisette will share with you that I called her, because I'm at my wit's end when it comes to this. The numbers are so bad. And like I told you, we're getting ready to partner with some domestic violence shelters for services for women who choose not to go to court, to make sure that they're supported. And I called her because of the work that the church, Greater Grace Temple and LaDonna have done. And I participated in their services before. And I called her and I said, you know, I need help. I need help getting the word out. I need help with the educational campaign. I need help with PSAs, public service announcements, whatever the church can do to help. And I said, you know, when the church is back in, when we're back in service full time, and when we're back in the sanctuary, you know, there's all kinds of things that we can do, and we're limited to it. And I know Bishop has been very generous in letting me speak, you know, during the service and to get the word out on different issues, and was very generous during the rape kits.
Hi, this is Sabrina.
talked about. And so I knew that that would happen again, but it's more challenging where we are now. And so that's why we were brainstorming about what we can do. This is the first stop in that. So educational campaigns. I am on the board of the Joyful Heart Foundation, which is the foundation founded by Mariska Hargitay, who's the star of Law and Order SVU. And one of the things that we're talking about is doing a national campaign. But how do you do it? You know, you can have these PSAs come on TV and you're sitting in the same room as your abuser. And we're having shows like this, and maybe some abusers are listening. And so we're trying to come up with ways that I'm not going to tell you right now, but I'll come back and talk about what is in place, about how we can get to women and how can they be safe without their abuser finding out. And one of the ways that you've seen already is in a lot of bathroom stalls that you go into in public buildings, you will see, you know, the back of the stall where you close the door, you will see services and information that you can write down. You'll see little cards that are out at the cashiers in many major stores. And so one of the things that we're thinking about, and one of the things that I'll just tell you now, because I was going to talk to the First Lady about this later, is how you broaden that. Perhaps you put a sign in a window of, you know, Victoria's Secret or other stores that women frequent. And so there are all kinds of things that we put our heads together, we can come up with to help our survivors.
Wow. So those are some additional things. So Kym, let me ask you this. As you know, girlfriends and wanting to do our part to help, what are some things that we can do that will make the greatest impact? You know, I know, you know, getting the word out there, doing this show, talking about it. Is there any other things that we can do, you know, to help champion this cause?
We need to talk to our daughters about the signs. We need to talk to our sons about how women are treated. I'm sure all of you on this platform, and many women are out there talking to their sons about how you treat women, talking to their sons who may interact with somebody in the basketball field or in the locker room, and they may be bragging about the conquest of different women, and how your sons can either step up or they can put out the word as well. Talking to our sons, I think, is just as important as talking to our daughters. When the children are back in school, we'll go into the schools and talk about this again. But talk to our daughters. And I know you've told your daughters, like I've told mine, the first sign you see, get out. You know, your dad being spoken to by the Holy Spirit, I believe, when you tell that story, telling you and then listening to that. Now, that doesn't mean my daughter will be immune from it, but I constantly try to do it without being overbearing, because you want them to listen. Keep an open mind with our children about all these issues, and hopefully they'll listen. And lead a life like you did when you were told about, I think you said it was in a dream, about this is going to happen to your 16-year-old daughter. Giving strength to people who know are being domestically abused. Most we don't know. That point has been made. There a lot of times we don't know, but those that you know, support them. Give money to and resources to domestic violence shelters. If you can't afford to write a check, you can take some tampons up there. You can take some sanitary napkins up there. You can take toothbrushes up there. You can take toothpaste up there. You can take, you know, the regular toiletries that women need. Shelters are always clamoring for that kind of material. So there's all kinds of things that you can do. And if you have any ideas about what I can do from my office as the Wayne County Prosecutor, I welcome anyone to drop me an email at kworthy@waynecounty.com, kworthy@waynecounty.com. And you have suggestions. You know, we don't have all the answers, but if you have, we are experts in prosecuting it, but we don't have all the answers. And so any new suggestion, no matter how well you think the idea will be, drop a line, or let the girlfriends on this show know, and they'll get the information to you. And so those are some ways that you can help.
Excellent. Well, Prosecutor Kym, thank you so much for your time on today. This conversation is a conversation that we need to have over and over and over again. We are our sister's keeper. Why? Because we're the force of friendship, and we're about making sure that our girlfriends are safe. You have been listening to 9:10 a.m. The Superstation. You can catch us Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. You can also follow us at The Force of Friendship. We can't wait to listen and to see you again on tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you all.
That was awesome. Very awesome.
This is great.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me.
Kim, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hold on. Let me turn my volume up. Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
That was excellent. That was so informative. So informative.
So many resources. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So
we
I
appreciate
can send you those resources if you like, Chris.
Yes.
So I'll email them to you.
Okay, and then I'll make sure we can share that stuff that we can share on our page. But okay, so Sabrina, before she gets off, go ahead and ask your question about the case.
Yeah, the case. Chauvin, the verdict is coming soon. What's your gut tell you, prosecutor?
We're off the air, right?
Yeah,
we're about to be.
We're not there.
We're not there.
Oh,
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Hold
Bye,
on.
Facebook. We love you.
Okay, bye-bye, Facebook. Bye. Y'all got to be in the girlfriends group.